Okay, we're on.
Mm. Cool.
Got you mid-sip there, huh?
All of a sudden, here we go.
There we go. Give me a second here. I want to monitor the comments. Hold on a second.
I've never done a Facebook Live.
Really? Wow. Then welcome to first time Facebook Live.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Live with Leo at 5. We have an amazing guest today. I want to introduce you, but before we do that, I just want to encourage everybody, if you are on and you're watching live, if you could just let me know that you can hear me, and just put in the comments live if you can. And if you're watching this from a replay, please put the word replay, and so that I know you're coming on after the live session here. I have Natalie Foote here, and she has an amazing, amazing story that I just love to talk about. It's quite unique to me, and she was born and raised in Catalina, and I would love for her to kind of go through her journey growing up, born and raised there, and tell us what it's like to be on the island of Catalina. We all know it as a little weekend vacation place, but I think getting the inside story from her is going to be super exciting. So Natalie, why don't you start off by kind of start off from the beginning, as a baby, where you were born and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, first, just thank you for having me on here. It's always fun to connect with other people and share stories. So yeah, so I was actually born and raised on the island. My family goes, I'm 4th generation. Some of my cousins have the 5th generation going. So we go a long way back here. But it took me a long time, I think, to realize just how unique living on an island, especially as a child, really is. Catalina is so neat in that, you know, it's only 22 miles off the coast of one of the biggest cities in the world, Los Angeles, but it's like a completely different world, especially down here at 2 Harbors, which is the side of the island that I live on. And when I was a kid, I grew up on a smaller section of the island called Middle Ranch. It's a tiny little ranch right in the middle of the island, and we had horses and kind of just free reign. And so as a kid, I definitely had that, you know, village upbringing. At 2 Harbors, there's only about 100 year-round residents, and so I had a lot of, you know, aunts, uncles, friends, family around, lots of cousins running around, and the island is, you know, it's a really safe place, and so your backyard is basically the entire island. So it gives you all this freedom to just really kind of explore and just be immersed in nature all the time. So that was largely my childhood, was spent really just on the trails and in the ocean, you know, out and about all the time. I was never inside, never watching television hardly ever. And yeah, just kind of had the freedom to roam. And that really, I think, you know, shot me in a lot of the trajectories that I've traveled into as an adult.
Yeah, so just out of curiosity and giving people some context, you know, I don't know how much people know about Catalina in general, you know, so as an island as a whole, what are we talking about in population? Can you break that down just a little bit?
Yeah, so there's 2 main places on the island that people live. The most known place is like the small city. It's technically a town. It's about 6,000 people, and that's the city of Avalon. So when most people hear Catalina, they automatically think of Avalon just because that's the main tourist destination. We actually have cruise ships that go in there. There's a lot of vacation rentals. It's kind of geared towards tourism. Honestly, the whole economy revolves around tourism. So that's that side of the island. And then down here at 2 Harbors, it's also kind of geared towards tourism, but it's a completely different audience. It's more of like an outdoor recreational kind of audience. So it's a lot of, you know, backpacking and a lot of hiking, a lot of boating, a lot of sailing. and that sort of thing. So it's kind of like a giant playground down here. I call it the real Catalina just because, I mean, it's the rural and rugged side of the island. And but it is tiny. I mean, we have one little tiny restaurant. We have one tiny little store. You know, one of everything really, and not a whole lot in general. So it's pretty simple, but you know, the payoff is you have just like endless nature, endless trails, like the most beautiful, pristine water. I was just out yesterday and you can see, you know, 60, 80 feet down in the water, down into the kelp forests. And we have one of the healthiest marine environments on the whole Western seaboard. So it's kind of special in that the nature's just been so preserved.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Every time I go there, we'll always forget, you know, how gorgeous and how pristine everything is. And we're just 20 miles off the coast, right?
22 miles, yeah.
20 miles off the coast. And so I know on the backside, you and I met, it's been what, 2 years or 3 years at a camp?
At Camp Xanadu at Emerald Bay. Yeah, which is amazing. Everybody should go. It's like summer for adults.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so we were on Little Harbor. No, two harbors.
Yeah, you were at camp, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we were at Emerald Bay, which is actually farther west than even Two Harbors. It's even tinier. So it's one of my favorite spots on the island. So
yeah, and what I remember about it is that not only, you know, like you said, on that side of the island, there's a lot more adventure tourism, you know, diving and hiking and camping and all that kind of stuff. But I do know that at Emerald Bay, you know, they bring Boy Scouts and, you know, school field trips to camp out there. And I just love seeing like the facilities set up, you know, for little kids to just be, you know, in a camping environment. And we don't get to see that as much, you know, here in California, because all the beaches you don't get to, there's hardly any more beaches where you can camp out on the beach. And this is like literally on the water.
right. Yeah. Yeah. The island is incredibly unique in that sense. It's almost like, yeah, taking a step back in time to what I would imagine the whole entire California coastline might have looked like, you know, 100 or so years ago before it was developed. And that was actually the intention of the original owner of the island, was to kind of preserve that natural beauty. But yeah, it's really wonderful that it's been used kind of as this setting where people can come and just, you know, just be and just connect to nature. And I actually work, USC, the University of Southern California, has a Marine Biology and Ecology Institute out on the island where a lot of research is done about the ocean environment and sustainability. There's a huge emphasis on that. And so I work with kids actually trying to just reconnect them with nature, which has become something I'm very passionate about, because I remember as a kid growing up over here, going to the mainland and just like staring out the window and being like, what is this place? It's like another world. And now that I work with kids, bringing them over here, you know, they're just so attached to their cell phone and they're kind of afraid of, you know, nature and animals and the things that I guess it's all in what's familiar to you. And it's just not at all familiar to them. And for me, it's like, you know, it's my second nature. It's like my home. I spend every day in it. And so it's been really wonderful to get to bring kids out and give them this experience where they're just, you know, free, like, you know, diving in the water and hiking. And I'll never forget, last year we had a group come out from the Bronx in New York. There were these incredible kids. They raised money selling candy bars to come out to our campus, and a lot of them had never, you know, seen or been in the ocean before, and they had a lot of like first experiences just interacting with, you know, a more natural environment. And it was so funny because, you know, there was a lot of fear going into it, but by the end, for example, like getting them in the water, it was kind of, you know, it was a very slow process. You have to be very empathetic and just slowly get them in. And then once they kind of get over that fear and realize that, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, we can't get them out. They just want to stay forever. And we actually ended up getting a really sweet thank you card from them after saying that it changed their life, and that, you know, instead of going and just being at the mall on their days off from school, they were looking for places to go hike and places to go, you know, like to the park and just to be outside. So it's really cool that when, you know, people get to have that experience in a world that's otherwise, you know, can be hard to find those places where you can find that.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I love hearing. I mean, you use just like the perfect words. Like, I'm so enamored right now because you're like, well, we're changing lives, and really, we are really changing lives. And I was thinking as you were talking, like they sold candy bars so that they can fund their trip, come up here. So like, you know, can you imagine like a little kid, like, okay, I sold candy bars and now I'm this place and I learned how to swim, or I learned to be in the ocean, and I saw, you know, kelp and I saw fish and stuff like that. Let's go sell more candy bars. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and so I think anything where you can change your lives like that, and you know, it's seemingly sometimes simple, but it's really mind-boggling. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm just so excited when you talk about it, because I put myself in their shoes and I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine, like, for the very first time, like being in the water? I've been in the water like hundreds and I don't know, thousands of times. And
Right.
now it's just water. I mean, I love it and I enjoy it and everything, but it's not like that first time where you actually get that feeling.
Right.
So that's really amazing, doing those type of things for kids. And they take that to their families, and you know,
Right.
you transform their families as well, you know, not just the kids, and they tell other kids, and they infuse that. So that's really amazing that what you're doing out there with that. um, Now I was thinking back when we met. You were actually giving a talk about marine biology and what's in the waters and the wildlife and things like that. Can you just kind of go over some of the more unique things that are out there, specifically, and that are in Catalina that you don't typically get to see, you know, in California, where you have all this, you know, land and city and cars and all that stuff? Just kind of give people a little bit of a glimpse, like what kinds of things they could experience out there.
Totally. So on this side of the island, the Rio Catalina, as I call it, you know, you get off the boat and you hit dirt roads. So that's the first thing that you're like, well, this is different. It's not paved. And we have a lot of different species here. It's kind of funny. We have bison. Everybody, all the locals call them buffalo, but they're technically bison. And those were brought out here for a movie back in the 1940s, and they were just kind of left. And so they've kind of become like this icon on the island. So we have about 150 bison that call this place home as well. We have bald eagles, we have deer, we have an indigenous little island fox that only exists on Catalina and nowhere else in the world. We have a few species that actually only exist on Catalina. They're kind of these little subspecies that evolved from the other Channel Islands, and that was probably happening. You know, we kind of teach the kids about the 3 W's: the wind, the water, and the waves, and then also through, you know, Native Americans transporting back and forth and kind of trading with each other and stuff. And then that's kind of what we have on land. And then in the ocean, we have.
Now hold on a second. I really want to talk about the buffaloes. The bison. Now,
Yeah,
nobody's ever
them all the time.
nobody's ever corrected me, and I always thought they were buffaloes because we always made fun, like, oh, you know, let's go to see
Yeah,
the buffaloes and stuff like that.
honestly, I always call them buffalo. I've been like, so it's funny because I work at a university teaching kids about the environment and stuff, but I'm not a marine biologist, and I did not go to college for any of those things. I actually studied holistic nutrition, which is kind of another passion project, and I work in that field as well. But the island is unique in that you have to live in order to live here, you have to either work for the company that owns Two Harbors, or you work for USC. It's all private land now. So that's kind of like the loophole, right? So you got to like work for one of them in order to like live in this little mini paradise. So that's kind of how I found a happy medium, is working for them. So not a scientist, but yeah, so that's probably why I call them buffalo as well. I always called them buffalo as a kid, especially growing up at the ranch. They were everywhere. We had buffalo. Like, I'll never forget, one day I was like reading a book, laying out in my front yard, and I just heard this weird like brushing against a tree, and I was like turn around, and there's this massive buffalo just like scratching his back on the tree in my yard, and I was just like, oh, hi. And I like just like rolled across the grass and like slowly stood up and like walked into my house, because he's a big guy. But they're pretty docile creatures. I mean, they're pretty calm, and I don't know, I know it sounds like weird, but I mean, I feel like all animals are really sensitive to your energy. So if you're, anxious or fearful, they're going to sense that, and it's going to like mirror right back to you. So they're going to become, anxious and be like, whoa, what's going on with her? So I just like, honestly, I just stay really calm around them and peaceful. And sounds funny, but like when I'm like yesterday, for example, I was out on a run, and I came up on one, and he was a big guy, and he's just like eating grass, doing his thing. And he like turns his head, and he's like looking at me, he's, chewing all this grass. And I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, like literally like maybe, 10 feet from me. And this thing probably weighs, I don't know, like at least 500 pounds, I'm guessing. They're big. And I'm like, how are you today? And he just like looks at me, like tilted his head, and just like kept walking. And I was like, okay, we're cool, right? And I just like went right by him. Like it was kind of fun. But yeah, they're kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's like top of the morning to you, right?
Totally. Yeah. I'm like, I see you, you see me. I respect your space, and usually respect.
I think a lot of people don't experience that. I was actually, I had a similar story to that. We used to camp out on Little Harbor once or twice a year, and with a group of people. And the group of friends that I was with just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we just couldn't do it anymore because the campsites, were limited to however many people. And so we just kind of fell out and we didn't do it. But we did it for about 4 or 5 years. And that first or second year, we were camped out there in the little kind of close to the ravine area. And we got up in the morning. One morning we got up, and there was probably about 12 of them just hanging out just across the ravine. And then another time we got up, and about 10 o'clock or so, we decided like, hey, let's go on a hike. We had our breakfast and all that stuff. And we went on a hike, along the ridge there. And we went, because there's a steep hill, and we went up the steep hill, and we're all going. I'm, curious me. I'm always like one ahead, like wanted to see what everything's ahead, and got ahead of everybody, probably about 15 feet ahead. And as I came up the hill, you can't see up the top of the hill, but as I got high enough, there was probably about 8 buffaloes right on top. And I startled them a little bit, because like I came up and they couldn't see me, and I couldn't see them until I was kind of up on the hill. And this big, massive bull, he's got to be like, I don't know, like 800 pounds or something like that. And he was just guarding all of his females. And I was like I was trying to just be cool. It's all right. They're not threatening me. Yeah. I just walked up, and like just kind of, like I didn't want to stop and like stare and startle and stuff like that. So I just like kept walking as I would normally would, and just kind of go through it. But he was probably the closest were probably about 5 feet, but they were backing away from me, luckily, where I didn't have to back away from them.
Right.
But the whole time it was eyes,
Yes, that's what I feel like. If you connect eye to eye, then it's like you have this mutual, like, okay, like you can kind of read it, because there has been a few times where I've come across them, and I just like this instinct, goes off inside, where it's like, okay, this guy, he does not want me going by him right now, so I'm just going to take the long way around. So I can relate to that situation.
And I think one of the things I felt, at the time was like, he didn't want to take his eyes off me because he didn't know what I was going to do. So he wanted to like make sure that I was going to be good. But as long as I kept walking and it started going further away from him,
Right.
then he was, you can like this massive animal, you can literally see like the muscles kind of relax a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They kind of like
Yeah.
deflate a little bit. They're like, okay, we're good.
Take a breath or something. And then
Yeah.
the rest of my friends kind of followed and they were like, whoa. And I said, okay, just be cool. And I just kept walking. I didn't want to
Yeah.
stop because then you stop, you're like a target.
You're a target, but then they also, I feel like they also feel like, why is this guy stopping? What is this guy? I think that they feel that same, potential threat, and the only time that there's ever been an incident with them on the island is when they're either, like backed up against a hillside and cornered and they have no way to get out and they'll just like, all right, I can't get out of here. I'm charging out, and they'll just do that, or when they're like, being photographed, they don't really like their photos being taken from too close a vantage point. So, but for the most part, yeah, they just wanna do their thing, just like we do.
Yeah, and I, if anybody would go on the island, just like don't try to take pictures and stuff because they don't know what you're taking out of your pocket. They don't know if it's a gun. They don't know the difference between, um,
Yeah,
phone or anything else. And so you best off just, keep walking. So
yeah, just respect,
yeah. Anyways, I think everybody that's been on the island who's encountered them all have a story. So it's super
Yeah,
fun.
everybody has their stories with the buffalo, the island buffalo.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool.
And I have seen the local fox. It's a red fox, right?
Yeah, they're cute.
They're super cute. They're only like, I don't know, they look like a little 10-pound dog, right?
They're probably smaller than that. I think like 4 to 6 pounds. They're like a small cat. They're tiny, but they're adorable. They're kind of nocturnal, so when you see them during the daylight, they just look really confused. But yeah, they're really sweet. They're very curious, very, they definitely live up to that fox reputation of kind of like getting into things. But yeah, they're pretty cute. They were endangered. They were incredibly endangered. There was only like a small handful left on the island, and then they did a program where they were able to like breed some of them to establish the population, and now they're everywhere. So they came back.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So that's the land side of things. I know we can talk a little bit about the sea side of things, which is my favorite. I'm such a Pisces and water boy. I love the ocean stuff. And one of the things I'll mention real quick is that the last time I was there, when I met you, we also took a paddle down to Parsons Landing.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, Parsons Landing is a beach full of rocks. And because of the geology there, there's a lot of amethyst.
Amethyst.
Yeah, there's caves of amethyst and stuff like that, and they break down and break off, and they wash up onto the beach. And we were literally picking, all these crystals off the sand for a long time. Any stories or anything you can share about that place?
Parsons Landing. It's just such a special place. It's probably the farthest removed campsite that you can access. And it almost looks like, I don't know, something you'd find on like the central California coast. It's rocky, and there's like this big boulder that sits right in the middle of the beach, and it's just beautiful. It gets hit hard with the wind, and but it can also be just like perfectly serene and beautiful. But yeah, it's unique in that it has those natural just amethysts literally all over the beach. And then there's a hike, actually, if you go, there's a waterfall. And if you hike the waterfall into these crevices and ravines in the ridgeline, you'll see veins of amethysts. And they're like, actually, I have them right here. So they're like big. So this one's not the most purple, but they get like pretty perfectly purple and beautiful. So I have all these crystals in my house from Catalina, and they're just raw and rugged, but they're really beautiful. It's a definitely a special place. I don't know, I feel like you can feel like different energies across the island. I mean, this place was inhabited by native indigenous peoples for over 7,000 years. So you come across sites where, you know, you can find, and we just leave it, you know, but like artifacts and stuff like that from the Native Americans, which is neat. It's a pretty I call it the sacred land. It's a pretty amazing place. But yeah, back to the paddling to Parsons. That was super fun getting to do that with you guys. I do quite a bit of paddleboarding. We don't have a ton of surf on the island, so it's kind of my way to be out on the water in addition to swimming and everything else. So I've actually gone across the channel like 8 different times on a prone paddleboard. And this last, oh my gosh, it's almost been 2 summers, I went and did a circumnavigation of the island with my really good friend, JC. We went all the way around, and I think we were the first people to ever do it on a prone board, and the first girls for sure. So that was really cool. And it was really just to experience, you know, just how incredible the oceans of, you know, surrounding Catalina really are. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have one of the most healthy marine environments of the whole Western seaboard. So I can like walk out my front door here, go for a paddle, go for a free dive, be in this kelp forest and see upwards of, you know, over 20 different types of fish and animals. And you have seals and sea lions, and there's dolphins. There was one summer where I would paddle straight out. There's a big rock that sits about a mile exactly offshore. It's called Ship Rock. And I would paddle out there at like 5 in the morning before work, catch the sunrise, and I would get out to the rock and I would sit up on my board and I would like look around, and for like 4 weeks straight, every morning there would be dolphins. And so I'd sit up on my board and kind of wait for them. And then we would paddle. It almost sounds like, you know, fake. It sounds like I'm making it up, but I would paddle with dolphins into the sunrise as the sun's like rising in the east. I would paddle down with them probably for at least, you know, 4 or 5 miles sometimes, and then loop back around. And there's some really cool sea caves on the way back. And so I would paddle into these caves and like out the other side. And there's this really beautiful rock wall, and it's made out of diatomaceous earth, which is compressed plankton skeletons from like billions of years ago that were compressed. And then, you know, when there was that volcanic activity, they rose to the surface. So we have cliffs of this, and it's like this pure white color. And so when the sun rises, it like bounces off the water and reflects onto these cliffs, and it kind of creates like this light illusion of like, almost looks like the Northern Lights, but a little, not quite as crazy. And so I just have like every morning, just about for like an entire month, I would paddle out, paddle with dolphins, come back, see those lights, and I would get back to shore by, you know, 6:30 in the morning. And I would just be like, oh my God, I would just be so like, you know, on next level, like of just stoke that I'd come up from the beach, and, you know, people are starting to like wake up, and, you know, they're just like sitting on their front porches, and I'm like, hi guys, like, how's it going? Like, such a beautiful day. They're looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, if you only knew. But
my day's done. I don't have to accomplish anything else today.
The best day ever by 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm gonna have to put that one on my list. Holy awesome. That's, you know, this is one of the reasons I want to bring you on, because I wanted to, you know, the secrets and the little places and waterfalls and things like that that you have the privilege of knowing, you know, where they are and be able to go. So I'm gonna have to put that one on the list, waterfall on my list. So so thank you for sharing that. Now I was thinking just in general, I have so many questions, so I'm just trying to nail down one of them. But you are able to live there because of your work association with USC and the people that manage the island. And so people are not if somebody like anybody like me say, hey, I want to live on that island, I wouldn't be able to, or how does that work?
You could live in Avalon. Avalon is technically a city, part of LA County, but the island itself is privately owned. And so Two Harbors is privately owned. They occasionally will lease it out to somebody, but right now they currently own it. So that is why it's all private property, basically. And then they own all of the businesses within that property. So everything from, the one restaurant to the one store to the dive shop, all of that. And then USC was donated some of the property, and that's where we have the Marine Center. So that's where I work. Before I worked for them, I actually worked for the island company that owns Two Harbors, and I did events and all sorts of things for them. So it was, I honestly loved it. Like, I didn't mind getting to live here. I mean, it was kind of, like the small trade-off. And now that I've gotten older, I feel like everything, I used to do a ton of more elite adventure sports, everything from, I was really into like the endurance running scene for a long time. Not that I competed a ton, but I lived for it. Like, I would run, 100 miles a week at one point. And this was like the perfect place to do that. And then occasionally I would race and do really well. And people would be like, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I live on a little island. And so it's kind of a fun story to tell. But I've found through working and living on the island and pursuing all of those adventures, and then working in sustainability over at USC, and then also kind of building what I'm really passionate about on the side, and that is, helping people get healthy and kind of just simplifying. I feel like for me, all these things, whether it's my adventures or working with kids in sustainability, or, nutrition and health, like, if we simplify and kind of return to nature, this world that I kind of grew up in, like, we find the healthiest foods. We find people living like happier lives, in these smaller, more like, I guess you could say, like tribe-like scenarios, and more connected to the natural environment. And so by learning all of that through living here and being able to work in all these different areas, that's kind of like moving forward now, excuse me, what I want to do more of. And I've done that through helping host adventure races that, really immerse people in nature. I've done that through my health coaching practice. I've done that through just, doing things with Heidi and Ryan at Camp Xanadu and stuff like that, just reconnecting people back to the simplicity of those things and like the elements of nature. And I mean, this is our planet, and that is our foundation, and we are part of it. And so that's been something that I've been really passionate about.
So you, so aside from the work you already do with USC and what they have going on, you are also helping people with health and wellness and getting them reconnected to nutrition and the land, and how they should work with their body to get themselves healthier.
Yeah,
and that
kind of their own intuition. I think we have this, we all kind of like ultimately, I think, know what we need as a unique body. We're all so different, and we're all at different places in our journeys. And I think that when you kind of tune into the frequencies of nature, and you turn into yourself, like, the answers are all there. It's just like realizing that, and then choosing that, and realizing like your body is as amazing and incredible and like just awe-inspiring as nature is. It's like so perfect. Like, you look at it and you're just like, wow, like, how is that? Like, it's amazing. Like, no technology could ever come close to replicating, like just how incredible like a tree is from its root system to its branches, or us from the way our eyes blink to our hearts beating, and just like our consciousness, everything. It's like so expansive and incredible. So that's kind of what I mean, I feel like you feel that in nature, like you're just like on the top of a mountain and you're like, wow, like this is amazing. And if you look, you know, it's kind of like the macro and the micro. You look at our own physical bodies, and it's the same. Like these are like incredible things we're gifted to experience this incredible world. And if we take care of it and we feed it right and we move and do all the things, then like we really get to experience the outside world at a higher level. So that's kind of the goal with that one.
So that's kind of your general philosophy in helping people with coaching in a more holistic kind of a way.
Yeah, very, I
to...
would definitely say more holistic, more kind of integrative for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Helping them just, you know, kind of realize how amazing they are, because I think we're all pretty incredible. And so, and then just learning.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, it's kind of like we get this like avatar and we just have to learn how to use it right.
Yeah,
So.
I think you're absolutely right. I think if anything, we become too unconscious. And I wrote an email this morning that I sent out to everybody, and it was just the main theme of it was about connection. Okay. And everything is related to the connection, which is kind of bringing me to mind again what you're saying. You're connected to your body, you're connected to your mind and heart, you know, how everything, you know, works. And then you're connecting with other people, and then you're connecting with nature, and then you're connected with the food that nature provides, you know, for you. So all of these things are all connections, you know, if I think about it, like everything's a connection. And so we start having problems when we have a disconnection. So it could be a disconnection between your brain and your heart. It could be a disconnection between you and the food source. It could be a disconnection from you and nature. I just recently learned more about vitamin D, that if you're not out and about enough, you're not getting vitamin D naturally, then you're depleted, you're vitamin D deficient, and that causes all kinds of internal problems. Goes to physical and psychological and all kinds of cascade of things that happen. And I've always been out, you know, a lot, you know, so luckily I never experienced some of the downsides of that. And I also have, you know, tend to have darker skin, so that's, you know, protecting me from all the UV rays. I know people that can't be out in the sun, you know, as much, but luckily for me, I didn't have that issue. But I think a couple of years ago when I got a physical, for some reason, everything was in line, all my blood work and everything was good. The doctor said the only thing that was a little below average was my vitamin D. And at that time, I wasn't out as much, and I tended got a little more depressive in a sense because I was less active.
Right.
So, yeah, and so that just that one thing alone, you know, connects you to the energy of the sun, you know, to your body, giving you nutrients, you know, vitamins, and then that creates a whole cascade of things. And then I also think that there's something to being in the water and swimming. You know, all that seawater is full of minerals.
Negative ions, yeah.
Full of so much minerals, and just be all that minerals soaking into your body. I think that if we don't do that, we're really missing out, you know, on a lot that we're getting naturally. Like there's no side effects, like zero side effects.
Totally, it's as simple as putting your bare feet on the earth, and yeah, like you said, immersing your body in water. And yeah, I mean, lately I've been thinking about everything in terms of like vibrations and frequencies. And, you know, the earth has its own frequency, it's the Schumann resonance. And if we, you know, take our shoes off and we just simply put our feet on the ground, we receive a lot of that, like that. They're called negative ions, but they're very positive for us. And so, yeah, I mean, it's why it feels, I think that's why people, like if, I mean, obviously the beach is a lot of fun and it's really beautiful, but people throughout, you know, all of history have been drawn to the water. Like some of the biggest cities in the world are built near the water. And I think that people are drawn towards the water for a reason, just like people are drawn towards the forest. And it's because those vibrations, those higher vibrations of nature are so healing and so resounding within our own bodies that we kind of need them. And I think oftentimes, like you were saying, when we're spending a lot of time inside and we're not getting that natural sun and we're not connecting with the earth and the different elements, we kind of develop that deficiency, like this nature deficiency almost. And it's not that we have a pill deficiency or anything like that, which is often what's prescribed nowadays. It's like as simple as just returning to our natural environment and returning to Mother Nature. She's like the ultimate, source, the ultimate doctor, the remedy, the problem and the solution exists.
That's right. That's right. She can create some problems, but she also has all the solutions too. But that's all natural. It's all normal, right? So yeah, I love what you're saying about vibrations. And in case people out there are watching are like, oh my God, it's so woo and this and that and energy and all that kind of stuff. Well, think about this. Your body, like you can feel it. Your body, every part of your body is vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
Every cell in your body is actually vibrating. So you are part of this vibrating, world that we're living in. Everything is vibrating. And so whether it's a light wave that's vibrating through, or your cells, either chemically or whatever, protons, neutrons, they're all vibrating.
Sure.
And so before you start thinking like, I don't, that's just some spiritual bull crap or whatever.
Think of it even in terms of music, like music is all vibrations, and there's music that makes you feel really good. And then there's music that makes you feel not so good. And it's all a matter of what kind of vibration that music is kind of coming at you at. Same with food. Food all carries a different vibration. There's like, heavily processed food, and that would be a lower vibration, or there's like food from nature, food from earth, and it's a higher vibration. So if we want to like attune ourselves to those higher vibrations and more positive energy and better health and more vitality and just like, I feel like just inspiration and motivation to like really live life, like we can put those higher vibration things into our lives and expose ourselves to more of them, consume more of them. And that's kind of like how we do it. That's how we rise up. And when you do that, like you also, I feel like it just kind of ignites things in your brain and everything starts working so, symbiotically and beautifully that your consciousness, of course, expands right along with it. And so you start thinking a little bit more outside the box and stuff. So it's kind of cool how it all works.
Yeah, and we go for full circle, right? This is all again about connecting and being conscious and connecting to those sources that are there. They're all there for you. You just have to look for it, be conscious of
like remembrance, right? It's already all inside of us. We just have to remember, or we have to kind of just. That's why I think meditation is kind of a beautiful practice, or just spending time alone in nature, is because it resides in all of us, because we're a part of it. We're a part of nature, we're not separate. And so I think that when in our busy lives, we can hold space to just come and just be, it's like this gentle reminder that, of those things of, that we have this, nature within us and externally, and we all have, these tools that are like built into us, this compass, our intuition, right? Intuition, I think of intuition, sounds again like more of the woo-woo side of things, but intuition to me is like consciousness and, spirit, like higher, source, whatever you want to call it. That is intuition to me. And then we have instinct, and that is more of like our primal essence, like this instinct that we've had over, generations and generations that are built to like help us, move forward in the world. But it's kind of cool to like just tune in and utilize both of those things. And they're the best tools you could ever have for living life,
Those people are out there say they're not feeling well, they're not happy or whatever. This is the answer right here, right?
Right. Yeah. Just tap in. Connect. Like you said, connect to.
Who knew? Who knew? Just this little island here, what I want to ask you about, because you have such a unique experience growing up, and where you live and how you live life and things like that. Like, what would you tell people who live on the mainland, as you say? What message would you give them, and um, I guess what kind of perspective can you give them to just kind of give an idea, because you kind of grew up in a different way than so many millions of people, in on the mainland.
Sure. Yeah. This is something I think about a lot because, I mean, for me, it's like I said, it's second nature. I grew up in it. And so I feel really thankful and really blessed in that sense. And I know that it's not always that easy to escape the city. I mean, I lived over there for a few months, 2 different times, and that was like always my mission. I was like, where's the nature? Where can I just decompress? And I think it's a lot more simple than, you don't have to pack a backpack and leave for, a month-long hiking trip. You don't have to do that. I think it's as simple as just slowing down, really. And I think that's, the thing about island life is it's slowed down and it's simplified, and you kind of come back to those core elements of what it means to be alive, and those like basic human fundamentals that we all share. And that being, just like you said, connecting is huge. Connecting to, yourself, connecting to others, connecting to where your food comes from, connecting to the earth and nature, whatever. And that can be, and it's different for everybody. That could be by just going to the beach. That could be by going to the park and reading a book underneath your favorite tree. That could be, a lot of people are at home right now because of all the things going on in the world. That could be sitting by a window, instead opening your window, getting that fresh air, letting the sun come and shine on your face, and having more plants in your house or something. I think just connecting with those more natural elements, and then, that's a great place to start. And then from there, kind of, slowly over time, just taking it one step closer, and, like making sure you're getting like organic food, for example, like trying to do more of those simple things, supporting local farmers, just getting more connected within your own community, connected to all those things that we need. That would kind of be it. And then, I think just the slow down and just like remembering to, I think, just breathe and take breaks from, the constant influx of media and the constant influx of information, and, driving at 80 miles an hour down the freeways. I mean, it's kind of, sometimes I feel as though we're humans living in a very non-human world in modern day. But I mean, it's obviously the direction the world has gone in. And so there's got to be this synergy of, maintaining that natural nature element that is so much a part of who we are. Because if we give up that, then we're kind of lost, right? We get the depression, we get these deficiencies that no technology can provide, but we live in a advancing, more technological world. So using that as a tool, but not letting it consume our lives and not letting it use us. We use it as a tool. So I think just finding stillness, I think just, making time to share a meal with your loved ones, cook, just slow down and just breathe more. I think it's simple. Yeah.
Totally. I think you said something really cool. We're not meant to go that fast.
Right. I think the human brain works best at like 4 miles an hour. Which is why I love to go walk. Like I'll literally go walk for 3 hours in the morning sometimes. And I feel like that's when, I have all my best, I do a lot of freelance writing, and I'm like, that's where I get my best thoughts, and I process emotions, and I process, a lot of what's going on in the world. And I think, slowing down. I mean, the first time I drove, I actually didn't drive on the mainland till I was 25. So I ran everywhere for the longest time and rode a bike. So when I like jumped on a freeway, I just felt like I was in this rocket ship, and I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so, obviously we adapt and we adjust, but I remember the first time I came back home after living on the mainland for a few months, all my body wanted to do was just like rest and like lay on the earth, which was funny because I came back having all these intentions of wanting to go hiking and wanted to go paddling and do all my favorite things. But my body was just like, no, like it had to totally recalibrate to like the natural like state that, human beings exist at. And so, and other people tell me that too, like some of the kids that I get coming over, they're like, whoa, they're like, I feel like we just went through this time warp and I just feel so relaxed and so at ease. And so I think, yeah, just kind of like making sure we, slow down. I think slowing down is huge in a world where we're moving so fast.
Yeah, I lived on Hawaii for a little while, on Kauai. So it's the least, for those who don't know, it's one of the lesser populated islands. It's the size of Oahu, but there's only 60,000 residents. So,
Right.
So I lived down there, and 35 miles an hour was the main highway. that wasn't like this. That wasn't like the neighborhood road. That was the main highway. And so when I would come back, I was like, where's everybody in a hurry to go?
Right.
It was like going so fast. So definitely I felt that. And I think there's something to be said about what you experience. And when I would go there, would take me probably 2-3 weeks to decompress. When I got there, I would sleep so good, like it's like the deepest sleep I ever had. And it's just that it could be just part of it, that slowing down of overall. You're not distracted, you're not being pushed to go faster and faster, but also the environment, just it's more relaxing. It's just relaxed. You're not breathing in smog and buildings and man-made things all over the place,
Right.
the concrete jungle type of thing. So I definitely felt that a lot. And but then once that few weeks go by, I don't even know how people can go on vacation there for like a week or 10 days and then come back, because I'm just getting started.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like if I go, I have like go for at least like a couple of months, because it take me a few weeks to actually like be with the land,
Right.
just be with the speed and be with everything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a super amazing experience that many people probably don't have. So because you got to be there long enough for that to happen to you, because you can't, like, you're in that same speed, you might slow down just a little bit, then you're back to the city again. So,
Right.
yeah. That's great. You offered so much information and everything. I really admire you for having paddled across the channel. That's probably another thing on my list again.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah, and then you paddled around the island. Now, for people who don't know, how many miles is it all the way around?
All the way around, we did about 64 miles.
Okay, so end to end, Catalina's probably about 30. Is that about right?
I don't think no, I want to say the island is very, it's full of canyons and ridge lines. I think it's only like 14 across.
Okay.
Like if you were going to go tip to tip, not including all the dips and valleys, like tip to tip, it's 14. And then at its widest, it is 8 miles. And then where I'm at, geographically, it's an isthmus, which is like a skinny strip of land that connects two larger bodies of land. So I'm at sea level, and there's like literally 1 mile strip of land between two harbors. So that's why they call it two harbors, is because you have a big harbor in the front and a big harbor in the back. So I'm kind of like sandwiched in between.
There's this cool documentary they did, I think this probably 5 years ago. It's called 1 Square Mile. So those of you who've never heard of it, go to just Google 1 Square Mile. And it's a documentary where they documented many places in the world, a square mile of a certain city or a town or an area, and then they document they interview people there, and they show what's unique about that square mile and what people do and things like that. I don't know if they did one on Catalina. They probably should have if they didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, if those of you who have never seen it, go on there. It's a really well done documentary, and it's really fascinating. If you guys like travel and you can't fly anywhere right now, just go look it up and check it out. So Natalie, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and everything. You have so much going on, with USC and the school, and helping with the kids and education and coaching. Like, you just got so much things going on that I just love, because it's done in a very, let's just say, a connective way, and so that I just have so much gratitude and appreciation for people like you who are doing great work out there. And so as per tradition, I know we talked about a lot about Catalina already, but just for you personally, what do you love about where you live?
I think it comes back to the whole nature element, really. Just growing up so connected and living to this day in a place where I'm so connected to just nature, the rhythms of nature, the sunrise and the moon, and just being outdoors, and the small community as well. I think that probably sum it up.
I'm gonna have to do that sunrise dolphin paddle thing.
Yes.
We did that
one. To do that, the world would be a better place, I think.
So I relate a lot of things that you said with Kauai, because I loved it over there. We used to go out to this beach called the Secret Beach, that the locals call it. And the reason it's secret is because the beach is really a long stretch of beach, about 1.5 miles, and you can only get in from one end. And so what the tourists would do, they would come into the beach on one end, and they would stay there, because it was too much work to try to walk across to the other side of the beach. And so the other side of the beach, on the other side, was where nobody was at unless you were a local and you knew, and you would just do the walk, and you would walk all the way there. And the sand over there is like, it's coral sand. And so I describe it as like walking in sand, but it's like walking in snow, because it's really light. It's all like coral, and like it's not like made out of rock. It's made out of shells and coral and stuff like that. So when you step in it, like, you would sink, like you were walking in the snow, but you're walking on the beach. And so it's hard work, to get to the other side. And we would always do. And one time I had a paddleboard with me, and instead of walking across and carrying it, I'm just gonna paddle. And so I went out in the ocean and paddled through, but the trade winds was coming in, so it was kind of hard too. But anyway, my point is, on that side of it, we would go hang out there for the day, and that's where the dolphins would come, like late morning, like 10 or 11 o'clock. And they would come hang out on that side of the beach, because there's not as many people there.
Right.
So we would swim out, and probably swim out, I don't know, a couple of 100 yards or so. And we would just wait there. We would just like, float in the water, talk and stuff like that, and wait for the dolphins to come. And so they would come, and and they're like, dolphins out there so wild, they're just like, they're like, it's their playground, and they're just so wild and active and everything. And so that was so when you mentioned about the dolphins, like, these are the images that are, coming through my mind. About stuff like that, like going out, waiting for the dolphins, to look for the dolphins. We would get up early in the morning, like you said, and watch the sun come up,
Totally.
So it's island life is really something, really super special. If I had a chance, I'd probably want to be there like a quarter of the year or half of the year, just to get myself back into nature, So thank you for sharing. And you have also a couple of quotes that you would like to share with everyone before we go.
Yeah, you asked me some of my favorites, and I had two. And there are two that I think Man, they're not necessarily terribly nature related, but then again, they are. Everything's connected. But they're just two things that have really helped me over the years. And in an ever changing world, and in a world, I feel like I live in a little bubble over here. But and one of them is what you focus on expands. And that's just something that has played true in my life through so many different situations and scenarios, like whatever, you feel like you're experiencing in the moment, it can become your world. And it's the same thing, with like our phones and technology, if we kind of like focus in on something, it kind of removes us from that higher perspective. So I just like to remember that, when somebody's having a hard time, it's like if we're only focusing on the problem, like let's retract a little bit and also kind of bring light to the solution. And that could be anything from, a relationship issue to a health issue to a lot of things. So I think, just what you focus on expands. So just being aware of that, trying to focus on, positive and keeping that vibration high. And then the other one is just to be the change you wish to see in the world. That's a quote that gets, I think, used a lot, but I think it's such a powerful one because sometimes it can seem overwhelming, right? Like there's so much going on in the world. And where do we start? We can almost kind of get analysis paralysis and just like freeze in that sense. But if we refocus that attention and shrink our worlds down in a sense, I mean, it's very good to know what's going on in the world, but like I said, it can be overwhelming at times. And so I think at times it can be beneficial for us to say, okay, like what am I doing as an individual? How am I taking care of myself? How am I taking care of like my headspace? How am I taking care of my body? And what can I control? And what do I need to like loosen the reins on that I can't control? Where am I putting my energy? So, when there's things about, even, big things like what's going on right now, it's like, it doesn't always serve us to just, sit in front of a screen, whether it's our phone or our computer, and just like be tuned into that fear. It's like, okay, like, let me close this. Let me make myself some nurturing food. Let me go for a walk. Let me go outside. And then same with like, bigger or other things, like things pre-coronavirus, everyday things, things like, the food that we consume, and making sure that like you're voting with your dollars for the things that you do believe in and for the changes that you wish to see for the good of all. So that's just kind of, practicing kindness, practicing, unconditional love, and doing the work on ourselves so that in turn, it's a ripple effect. And then you kind of live by example more than anything else. And I think that can have a really powerful impact in the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful and perfect, for what we're going through right now, because if we all just focus on the negativity, then that's going to expand, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think you coming on here, bringing a lot of wonder and nature and, positive energy from the negative ions, and showing everybody, that you can be that change in the world, and be able to give like you do, with the people you coach, with the kids that come on the island and things like that. So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you've brought to us today and sharing with everyone. And I appreciate your time. I believe you are the change in the world. So
well, likewise, Leo. It's been such a gift to get to be here with you and just to talk and to connect. I mean, connect is really the key. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm glad that the Wi-Fi and stuff like that, we have this airwave right across the channel.
You never know living on an island.
I know. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We went, of course, longer than we normally schedule.
That's okay.
Yeah, but there's so much good and so much wisdom in there. And Sometimes we just go with the flow, and whatever comes out of us, whatever connections we can make, we just do. And so I'll let you guys get to your evenings and have a good dinner and everything tonight. Tomorrow, I have another wonderful guest for you. And if you guys want to see a replay of this or easy access, I've got them on my YouTube channel. You can just find the link up on the post here, you'll see. And if you want to reach out to either one of us, if you want to reach out to Natalie and have any questions or anything that you'd like to ask her about the island or about the programs or the things that she's doing or coaching, I've got it on the post. It's both Instagram and Facebook. So feel free to message her for any of that. And then otherwise, I look forward to having you back sometime and give us more updates about Catalina. So, okay, well, have a great night, everyone. And I will talk to you soon. I love you all. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.